So there was one good thing that came out of this entire fake Natty situation with Hussein, and it's that I made a new friend, and that's Ella, the Scientific Snitch. Make sure you guys go and follow her on Instagram. I'll post a link to her profile down in the info section below, but she's agreed to come on the channel and chat with me to talk a bit more about polymorphisms, because what happened during the whole exchange with Greg and Hussein and Nippert and, the whole fake Natty thing was she actually reached out because she wanted to be helpful and she wanted to provide some evidence that could suggest that maybe Hussein does have some 1 in a million genetics. By the way, I don't believe at all, okay? But she was just trying to be nice because she'd been doing a lot of research, and these are the types of things that she studies, and she was talking about polymorphisms, and they're actually a bit more common than you might realize. Not even 1 in a million, like 1 in a couple 100,000.
Yeah, so apparently this whole Hussein is a fake natural thing is just a publicity stunt, and he didn't actually take gear, but honestly, I don't know what to believe. And if I'm being really brutally honest, it's not cool that they use the information that I gave them in this publicity stunt on genetic polymorphisms. I gave them this information under the context that the individual is natural and they just grow more muscle than other naturals do. I never spoke about genetic polymorphisms saving your muscle mass after gear usage. I gave them this information because I felt bad for all the hate they were getting. Now, I know some of you guys in the comments are going to be like, oh, how could you trust them? Well, I know that people are different offline than they are online. I also am always willing to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's really not cool of them that they use the information that I gave them out of the goodness of my heart, trying to do the good and right thing to help diffuse the natty or not drama, to start even more drama on a publicity stunt I did not even know about.
And so I thought that it was a really interesting topic and I wanted to learn more about it. And so I reached out to Ella and asked if she would come on the channel and talk a bit more about DNA sequencing, how you can test to these things, and what a polymorphism actually is. So I hope you guys enjoy the collab. And if you want to see more collabs like this, let me know down in that comment section. And of course, make sure you tap that like button for the algorithm. Now let's bring Ella on the channel. Ella, what's up? The Scientific Snitch. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
I've been talking about having you on the channel now for like the last 2 weeks, covering the whole drama with Hussein and Greg and Jeff and how you kind of got thrown into the middle of it with good intentions, and the information that you provided to Greg and Hussein just got greatly perverted for them to push this whole like narrative of them just trying to get views. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, they took the information you gave. Many of us, myself included, had never heard of what a polymorphism is. And actually, at some point during their video, we all were kind of convinced it was actually just a made-up word that didn't mean anything. And that's kind of how I felt watching Greg talk about it and watching them joke about it. And then they kind of took your video, took a little clip of your video and put it in theirs. And they're like, we don't know what this means. And they kind of just moved on to the next thing. But after talking to you and learning more about like your background and what a polymorphism is and DNA sequencing, you and I had kind of come to the conclusion that if they really wanted to say that Hussein has like 1 in a million genetics, which by the way, you told me that polymorphisms aren't even 1 in a million, it's like 1 in a couple 100,000, actually much more common. If they really wanted to prove that he has these phenomenal genetics, the whole $100,000 to test my blood work, or $500,000 to prove, or now he's at $1 million, I'll give you $1 million if you can prove that I'm not a natural based on his blood work. What we've been talking about is, well, why don't you just go spend $5K and do a DNA test and put it to bed, which could actually even be more interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't even be $5K. Commercial testing is usually around $999, according to like sequencing.com and DNA Complete. Then if he had a doctor, maybe he could get a more comprehensive testing done from Baylor Genetics. And if he even wanted to reach out to a researcher or something, which is very easy to do, and a lot of undergraduates do it all the time to get into laboratories, you could reach out to like Novogene or like go through a researcher through Novogene to get your genetic testing done. So it's not only feasible, but it's possible.
Hell, these guys are I think for Hussein has a Lambo. Greg just bought a new Ferrari.
Yeah,
they should spend the most amount of money possible on this DNA sequencing, because it would also be an interesting topic to talk about, right? Like, dude, if I had my DNA sequenced and I found out I had these genes that most people don't have, I would be bragging about it. I'll be like, hey man, you're never gonna look as good as me because I got these amazing genes. and you don't. You're just a normie, right?
I mean, it's also like they're never going to be able to fully prove that Hussein's natural, even with that $1 million testing, because like I believe even Greg said it himself, like you can't prove the past. So
does us saying this prove that he's a lifetime natural? Nope.
Why not just go ahead and show, hey, I have these genetics. This, you don't need to believe I'm natural or not, but this is a potential explanation. But I guess not.
Well, so maybe let's kind of start out this video because we have a few things that we're going to talk about, and let's kick it off with, what is DNA, because that's the basis of this whole situation we're talking about.
Yeah, so your body is basically made of a bunch of little tiny living blocks. These living blocks are known as cells. I'm sure you guys all heard about this in first grade biology, but these cells receive instructions from specific sequences of nucleotides, which I know that sounds a little jargony, but think about it like an instruction manual. So your cells have this instruction manual in the middle of their cells inside of their nucleus, and these nucleotides are the words on that instruction manual. So the instruction manual itself is DNA. The nucleotides are the words. So basically, that DNA, it must be condensed inside into chromosomes, and that's probably what you've heard of. And so now all of the cells in your body have the same DNA. And the reason why this is because your DNA provides the instructions for every cell in your body, and depending on the cell you're looking at, so your brain cell or your muscle cell, different genes are going to be expressed. Some genes are turned off, some genes are turned on. The problem with that, and I'm sure you probably have heard of this, is sometimes mistakes can be made.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that would bring us to like talking about like what a mutation is.
Yeah, so, and I guess that's going to be probably the most exciting thing in this video is learning about these mutations, because I mean, let's face it, right? Like we all grew up as kids wishing we had the X gene, right? Especially if you grew up watching anime, X-Men, Marvel, DC, right? We all thought like, hey, if I only had like a mutation that could make me stronger, better, faster than somebody else, that would be really cool. And what you're saying with these polymorphisms is that's basically what these mutations are, except that you won't be shooting lasers out of your eyes.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people got this false notion in their head that genetic mutations are these crazy drastic differences between people. Like if you have a genetic mutation that promotes muscle growth, then you're going to be a jacked baby. And if you wanted to like flash up that picture of that one case study I sent you over, that's like a very rare instance. Usually mutations result in miscarriages or non-survivable like cells. A lot of cells with these drastic mutations, they end up dying because they can't actually sustain life. But a genetic polymorphism is just referring to the presence of one or two variants of specific DNA sequences, and that's very slight. So it's like a very subtle mutation that maybe just impacts your response to a certain environment, a certain intervention or something like that. And the most common type of genetic polymorphism is a single nucleotide polymorphism, which is referring back to that analogy with the DNA manual, is literally like a single word on your DNA manual or a single letter being switched out for another. So it's very, very subtle. It's not something that is so incredibly rare or causes jacked babies. It just alters the way that you respond to things in your body.
Well, so then how would these genetic polymorphisms be relevant to bodybuilding and building muscle?
So there are hundreds upon hundreds of different genes that regulate and grow your muscle. I was actually having a conversation with my partner the other day because he got very stuck on AKT being like promoting muscle growth. And I think it's really important to remember that your body and your muscles are so dynamic. They have so many genes that control them. So one of the well-known ones is known as myostatin. And the less myostatin that you have, the more muscle you have because it negatively regulates. But
the jacked cows and bulls that you guys see all over the internet.
Yeah, and
I've actually seen some dogs with the myostatin deficiency.
Cool.
They look, dude, they're shredded, like, bro.
And I think something also is very important to mention is that myostatin is different in other animals than it is in humans. A lot of smaller animals like rats and rodents, they have a stronger, more pronounced impact when you knock down the myostatin gene. And in humans, it's not as pronounced, which is why myostatin antibodies actually had a negative impact on some individuals with muscle wasting conditions. I don't want to say it's not as important for muscle growth, but it's not as strong in humans. And I think that's very important to recognize. But as I said, larger drastic mutations can result in jacked babies, but the more subtle ones can just kind of improve your response to lifting. And one of those mutations is known as MSTN K153R, which is a single nucleotide polymorphism. It literally means that the amino acid K or lysine was replaced with arginine at the 150th 53rd position on the myostatin gene.
So now, is this the information that you tried to give to show that it was possible? Like, hey, maybe Hussein does have a polymorphism. This could be what it is, and this is the results that you would tend to see based on training. Because the whole thing with him is, the physique that he built. And he just released a video training with Alex Eubank, and he looks twice the size of Alex. Like, he looks like a cloud, okay? By the way, guys, I don't believe that he's natural. Like, I don't believe it. First of all, I don't really believe anybody, just because I've been around for a long time and people lie through their teeth. Whether he has a polymorphism or not, I guess we'll never know until he does a genetic test. But what you were trying to do was be nice and be like, hey, these things do exist. He could possibly have this one.
Yeah, and I guess just to explain a little more, the myostatin protein, it's made of these amino acids. Lysine is one amino acid, arginine is another amino acid. When you replace lysine with arginine at the 153rd position on that protein, that's when you have this mutation. And the reason why I thought it was specifically this one is because his upper body is significantly larger than his lower body. If you've seen any pictures of Hussein, he basically covers up his legs because he doesn't have them.
Quick note, I actually made a mistake here. I'm only human and humans make mistakes. My notes were mixed up. In this study, they were looking at 2 different myostatin mutations. They were assessing and evaluating the impact of the MSTN K153R and the MSTN A55T polymorphism on muscle growth. The myostatin polymorphism that increased muscle growth in the upper body but not as much in the lower body was the MSTN A55T mutation. So the mutation that Hussein, someone with a very big upper body but not very much of a lower body, would have would be the A55T mutation, or alanine for threonine at the 55th position on the myostatin protein. Not lysine for arginine at the 153rd position or MSTN K153R, that just increases muscle mass in response to training overall. MSTN A55T is what increases muscle mass in specifically the upper body, but not as much the lower body. I'm so sorry for making that mistake. I'm only human. I hope you accept my apology. I noticed this mistake as soon as I got off the call with Scott.
And according to studies, that's literally what you see with people that have this mutation. And between, I believe it was like 7 to 20%, depending on your ancestry, you're likely to have this mutation. So it's not only very possible, but it's also like explaining exactly what he could potentially have. And I just want to clarify, I'm skeptical on whether or not he's natty or not. Like, I don't care. And I also think that a person's demeanor is more telling of a person's natural status. So if you're marketing yourself as natural and marketing all your supplements because you're natural and you could get a body like me, then I probably am more skeptical about your natty status.
Now, what do these have to do with strength? And the reason why I'm asking is because, like, there's a lot of kids that go to my gym that I work out at that they literally talk about the drugs they take. Like you and I would talk about what we had for dinner last night. And I always notice when they're off cycle, I can tell because they know they're no longer going to the bench press trying to impress everybody, repping out 315 because they can't. So do these polymorphisms have anything to do with strength? Because a really good indicator for me with dudes when they're on gear, especially these guys that are like getting ready to do a show and they're still throwing around heavy weight like they were when they weren't getting stage ready, is a very good indicator to me. Because when you're stage ready, you're weak as hell. Like you basically suck your body down to its leanest level so you can look the best on stage. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But back to the original question, do these polymorphisms have anything to do with how much strength you have, or is it just muscle growth?
Yes, they 100% can. Myostatin K153R like people who have that variant, they've been known to have an increased amount of strength. That being said, it's important to note that myostatin also plays a role in tendon regulation, repair, and maintenance. So if your myostatin gene is mutated too far, you could actually be weaker and you could be less strong. That said,
oh, wow.
That said, actinin3R577X is another mutation on a separate gene that encodes for particular parts of type 2 muscle fibers. Type 2 muscle fibers are your most powerful muscle fibers. The more you have them, the better they are, the more strong you get. And they see that individuals with this polymorphism are not only stronger, but also bigger. So there's you could have a mutation on both of these genes. Maybe you're heterozygous for this mutation on both genes or homozygous for both of these mutations, and that just will make your response to lifting even better.
So it sounds like to me, if they do watch this video, which they might watch this video, if they really wanted to show that Hussein has these amazing genetics and he's one in a million and he did it all in 18 months and blah, 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 he should try to see if he has these polymorphisms. Like, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And again, it's an interesting thing to talk about. Like, it would get a lot of views. This is the kind of stuff that people want to learn about.
Yeah, and I guess another thing to highlight is individuals who are around that Middle Eastern area, people with ancestry around the Middle East like he does have, just so you know, there is so approximately, I believe it, 22% have the D allele frequency of the MSTN K153R polymorphism, according to the Ensemble database. I just pulled this up right now. So individuals who have ancestry that is close to around that area, obviously, if you're very admixed, you're probably not going to have as much of it's going to be a lot more vague. But the idea here is that it's possible to have this mutation. It's not just 1 in a million. It's a decent proportion of the population. And it's not as rare as people think. And I think it's just, if you want to provide an explanation, it's not going to be proof that you're natural, but it's going to be an explanation.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, Ella, too, right? If at the end of the day, I mean, if you read the comments on his last few videos, they're bad. A lot of people are just not happy with the entire situation. I think that this would be a step in the right direction, just to try to gain trust back from a lot of community members that he's lost. But at the end of the day, do I think they're going to go down this road? Probably not. But it is really interesting information, and I just thought it was really terrible how they took this work that you did. You took time out of your day, and you're still in school, you're still studying, so it's not like you just have all this extra time to put together video content to get involved in these types of situations, and you were just trying to be educational and put out some good information. That information was then perverted to push the scheme that they had to get more views. I just didn't think it was fair. And everything we talked about in this video is super interesting. And so I guess if anybody watching right now wanted to do some of these tests, we talked about it a little earlier, but what were some of the other websites that they could check out?
Yeah, so sequencing.com and DNA Complete looks to be the ones that I could find at least half decent reviews on. I'll say that sequencing.com seems to be the most trustworthy. I would not go with 23andMe just because they've been having a lot of lawsuit issues due to information breaches and stuff like that.
Yeah, Ancestry.com will never sell your DNA, and then they sold all the DNA.
Yeah, and Ancestry.com is more so ancestry genetics. So there's a difference between how you sequence certain
the
genes.
genome.
Yep.
Did I sound
so
smart?
A lot of ancestry genetics is involving in components of your DNA that actually aren't mutated as much in terms of from generation to generation. But these are a part of the genome that encode for who you are. And this is the part that does get mutated. And it's fairly frequent too. He could have a mutation that very few people have, to the point where we don't actually have literature on it. But even then, if somebody told me they had a mutation on the myostatin gene and they had a genetic variant that wasn't very well studied, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, that's a cool explanation for why you could be natural. And it's just, I like to think of proof or trust as a seesaw, where the more evidence you have on one side, the more inclined I am to believe you.
Yeah, no, that's a really great way to say it. I mean, as much as you can do to put people in your corner with solid information based on research, right? That's just the way to do it. He's only been on the scene a couple of years. So me, for example, I've been on the scene for 16 years. People have seen my progression of over the last 16 years. There's a lot of evidence there. You see the type of training that I do. But for a lot of these newer guys, I mean, they're jumping on Instagram already pretty much, in super great shape. They're jumping on YouTube already in super great shape, and they're putting information out there. People aren't really documenting their journeys as much as they used to, even 5 years ago. So it's a very different scenario out there. And so the race to prove that you're not full of shit is very competitive. And this seems like a really good solution to at least have some truth in your corner when you're trying to explain how and why you were able to build muscle over a certain period of time. And again, I don't believe that Hussein is 100% natural at all, but this is an interesting topic that they could easily do. They get information out there, and it could prove that maybe his genetics are a little different than the average gym goer. Regardless of that, I'm just happy, Ella, that we were able, because now we're friends. These situations, they're kind of shitty, but at the end of the day, there's always a positive side to it, and that positive side was we connected. We became friends. Now we're doing this video together. And who knows, this topic might even get pretty big and more people might want to learn about it, and we could do more videos. In fact, if you guys have any questions for Ella, I mean, of course, you can go to her Instagram page. You can message her there. But if you want to see videos on specific topics that Ella could come on and talk about, just comment them down in the comment section below. Yeah, and Ella, thank you so much for jumping on the channel today and giving a bit more information on what polymorphisms are and how they could be relevant to the bodybuilding world.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed this talk.
Awesome. Well, hey, have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time.